Call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976. That's 1-800-990-6976.
Checking the mix of scattered showers, maybe a few thunderstorms as we into this afternoon. Overall, the severe threat is quite low. It's more downpour action than anything. Temperatures will vary as well because the clouds and spotty showers. Overall, upper 60s to lower 70s can be expected. We'll end the rain tonight north to south with a clear skyline for sunshine on Friday. From the Wave Storm Tracking Team, I'm Brian Good.
This forecast, a service of Dalbo Insurance for home, renters, auto, and life insurance. Call 502-265-0128 or visit thaterieguy.com.
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to Kentucky's Voice Radio / television. This is our first week where Kentucky's Voice Radio is going to be both on television and radio. So if you're listening to us on by the way of 970, AM 970 on WGTK, we're doing the show live, but we're also taping this program so that it can be replayed back on WBNA later this afternoon. So this is kind of fun. We're kind of expanding our reach here, going from radio to television, and then we're going to expand from there to do more social media and really engage with the world as a whole. So today we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, Andy Beshear. Andy Beshear looks like is seriously running for president. He hasn't announced yet, but he is certainly in the running. Today there's a lot of buzz on X and formerly Twitter about that. Politico has some statements about it, and so I wanted to do a deep dive into Andy and to see what makes him tick and what's the perspective he's going to bring. You know, what's unique about Andy? What makes him a good presidential candidate? What are his weaknesses? What are his challenges? What are the things that we need to be looking out for? And as conservatives and as Republicans who certainly don't want to see a Democrat president, what is the main issue? What are some of the key ideas that Andy represents, that he espouses, that we take issue with, and so we're going to dive into that. Before we do that, Andy did a great interview. He did an interesting interview with here recently, and with Jon Stewart, and so we're going to switch to that now and see what you think. We'll comment here after that. So, guys, here we go.
During my election year, I vetoed the nastiest piece of anti-LGBTQ legislation my state had ever seen. It was picking on kids.
What was the legislation?
It was an anti-trans piece of legislation directly targeting children that are already picked on way too much. And when I explained my why, I told people that this is my faith that teaches me that all children are children of God, and that if the legislature was going to show hate towards these children, I wanted to show them love. I wanted them to see that a governor sees them and cares about them. And I'll never forget the next day, I had somebody walk up to me and I thought, oh no. Stuck out his hand, I shook it, and he said, I'm not sure I agree with what you did, but I know you're doing what you think is right. So when we talk about that why, sometimes we can get beyond that one hot issue and get more towards, are the people running our state or running for office trying to do what they think is right?
Are cultural issues your toughest legislative fights? Because obviously Kentucky culturally, very conservative. They've been red for a very long time. Is that where you've had the most difficulty with the legislature? And what's the makeup of the legislature? You know, if it's reflective of 30% to Trump, is there a supermajority of Republicans? What's the makeup that you're dealing with?
There is a super majority on the other side. I'm not sure that there's anything really super about it.
Do they crush your vetoes? When you vetoed it, did they go back and go, yeah, screw that?
They do, but I wanted those kids to know that I care about them. When I vetoed anti-diversity legislation, I wanted everyone to feel welcome. And there's a power in that, John, about a governor saying, I believe in you. I see you for who you are. And I believe that there's an important place in Kentucky for you. And I get to hear that, but I mainly do it just because it's the right thing. And sometimes we get away from that. Oftentimes the right thing is the right political thing. But if people see you standing up for your principles, they can respect that, even if they sometimes disagree.
Right.
Well, let me stop it there, and we're going to continue with this interview in a second. But I wanted to talk about what he just said there. So, first of all, Bashir is going to be positioning himself as sort of the moderate Democrat, Southern Midwestern governor who can do well on a national ticket. Well, who else did that? Well, look back to the 1990s. Look at Bill Clinton. So he was a Arkansas governor who espoused himself as a new third way, moderate Democrat, and he did well. He won. Well, he was a two-term president, and so Andy surely sees that calculus there, and he's taking advantage of the fact that the Democrat Party has gone far left, and they have gone so woke and have just basically lost a lot of folks, and so there is an opening for that type of person. The question is Andy that type of person? And also, is the dynamic the same? Because back when Clinton ran, you had George Bush, you had the Reagan era, and they were a little bit more of traditional establishment, or Republican, policy stances. This era is different, and why? Because Donald Trump. Donald Trump has basically changed the Republican Party. Donald Trump is basically Bill Clinton 2.0. Let me say that again. For a lot of my Democratic friends that really don't appreciate this line of thinking, I'll just reiterate this. If you're a big fan of Bill Clinton, you should really like Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has basically took the Republican Party and tacked it back to the center on many issues, from economics to immigration. I mean, Bill Clinton was pro deportation. Bill Clinton was really anti-immigration on many levels, and Democratic Party was traditionally anti-immigration on many levels because they were concerned about American workers. And so a lot of the issues that Bill Clinton did well on, Trump has basically stolen that out from under the Democratic Party, and the Democrats have actually shifted more to the Wall Street crowd. They're a little bit more in the side of big business now, as opposed to the American workers. So from an economic standpoint, I don't think you can out Trump, or even out Vance. Let me say this: out Vance when it comes to Andy Bashir. So he's thinking along these terms. I'm going to be Bill Clinton 2.0. I can be this moderate guy that people will like, and I don't think that's going to work economically, because the Trump agenda has changed the Republican Party and stole the Bill Clinton's best lines, and so now secondly, what did he just talk about? He talked a lot about his faith. He talked a lot about transgenderism and how he's protecting these kids, and how his faith pushes him to have these positions, and to protect the innocent and protect all this stuff. He's basically doubling down on the woke business, right? The whole DEI stuff, the LGBT agendas, all the stuff that's been so controversial over the past decade, and America has pretty much rejected. And in most circles, in most mainstream circles now, wokeism is dead. People see that it's an empty, hollow, divisive, and also wrong agenda, because it's just wrong. It doesn't line up with the truth. And so if Bashir is going to continue to push these agenda items, I don't think he's going to do well nationally there either. And let's unpack that a little bit further. Dave, I'm going to continue playing this clip, and we're going to get back to this about why Andy Bashir's doubling down on woke is really just a form of toxic empathy, and how he thinks his wrapping in faith language is going to make some inroads with people. Don't think it will. Let's continue this clip here. Oops, gotta get my laptop working. There we go.
Those, you talked earlier about, we have to really consider our language and speaking like in the way that people speak. I would imagine there's no initiatives more popular in a very red state with a supermajority of Republicans than anti-DEI or anti-trans or anti-immigrant kinds of legislation. and that they can put those through pretty easily. Boy, that's a needle to thread to discuss those things without sounding like a woke intellectual that is trying to do their. How do you convince people in pragmatic terms that DEI isn't about anti-merit? It's about.
We're going to get his answer after the break, and but how can he come off in this way?
This is
without being too
Kentucky's
woke?
Voice.
We'll find out. So we'll be back right after this break, and we'll talk more about Andy Beshear and is he the right candidate to to basically resurrect the Democratic Party from the dust.
With a beautiful selection from Nan's and Crafts Florist. As a family-owned and operated business since 1850, we are committed to delivering the precious flowers, plants, and gourmet food baskets both locally and nationwide 7 days a week. Allow our experienced floral designers to create the perfect arrangement for Mother's Day. We also offer a curated selection of plants that make enduring gifts for your loved ones. Explore our offerings online at nanscraft.com or visit our store at 141 Breckenridge Lane.
Don't miss all the exciting action of Louisville Bats baseball, AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. See the stars of tomorrow at Louisville Slugger Field, one of the best minor league ballparks in the country. Every Tuesday is Taco Tuesday. Wednesdays feature half-price tickets for seniors 55 and older. Get bang for your buck on Thrifty Thursdays. Enjoy $3 beer and $6 margaritas on Fridays. Sunday is Kids Day with a free kids meal and Kids Run the Bases postgame. For tickets, visit batsbaseball.com.
Need work on your heating or air conditioning? Go with Christian-owned and operated Divine Services. Serving Metro Louisville and the Tri-County area and servicing every make and model. Divine Services features Tempstar heating and cooling products to replace your old worn-out unit. Tempstar high-efficiency heating and cooling products. Quality you can feel. Online at DivineServicesLLC.com. Call Divine anytime at 502-712-1979. That's 712-1979.
Hey Cardinal fans, United Mechanical is thrilled to sponsor this season of Louisville Cardinals basketball on the Mike Rutherford Show. From HVAC to electrical, plumbing, and refrigeration, United Mechanical is your winning choice for reliable commercial and industrial services. Call 502-339-1133. That's 502-339-1133. Listen to the Mike Rutherford Show Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 on Big X Sports Radio 96.1 and 1450. Let's go Cards.
Louisville football fans, the 2025 schedule is here, and you can start looking forward to a fall filled with excitement at L&N Stadium. For the first time in 17 years, there are 8 home games on the schedule, including 2 marquee matchups against Clemson and UK. Visit gocards.com/FBinfo to learn more about a season ticket plan that best suits your needs.
Every year, dozens of children are forgotten in the backseat of a car by a parent or caregiver. All never thought it could happen to them. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Got a big gathering? Feed a crowd the easy way with City Barbecue Catering and the best barbecue in town. Freshly smoked daily at our 2 locations. Our original off Whittington Parkway in Hurstbourne and now on Poplar Level Road near Kroger. From a company picnic to a wedding, our catering pros will deliver beef brisket, pulled pork, pulled chicken, ribs, or even smoked turkey breast. Dine in or carry out. Order online at citybbq.com or download our free app with City Rewards. You get $5 off your first order.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough. But if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time-to-talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right. Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, and we're talking about Andy Beshear and how he's running for president. And he's very clearly in the race now. Many people see him as a better alternative than Governor Newsom in California. Newsom's kind of has some baggage, and folks are not real pleased with some of his actions out in California. So Beshear is now the new, the bright, sunny child of the Democratic Party right now, getting a lot of attention in the national scene. And so we're trying to unpack what he is, what he's trying to do, what his perspective is, how he's going to present himself nationally, and maybe what we can do as people who really know Andy, because we've been under now the second term of Andy Beshear. We know him pretty well, and what is the true Andy Beshear like, and just so folks around the world, around this country, can really understand what you're dealing with. First of all, we played a clip of an interview with Jon Stewart had with Beshear, and he was talking about how his faith drives a lot of his decision making on the woke business, on the DEI stuff, on LGBT issues, transgender issues, and so Jon Stewart is going to dig into that a little bit further and see how Andy's going to respond to people that have a question about that. So let me pull this up. We'll pull this picture up first before we go to this clip. This is Andy right here. This is he's basically in the state capitol with it's a group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And so many of these guys, this is basically a drag show group that runs around the country and is an activist group. And actually many of these members have been charged with child sex crimes. So just so you know. And so that's Beshear. That's who he's kind of, hitched his wagon to. He's not pulled back from that agenda at all. He's actually spoke at a recent, LGBT event here in Louisville, and so he's woke. He's doubling down, and he's using his faith as the reason that's important to him. So let's go back to this interview and see what he's got to say.
Boy, that's a needle to thread to discuss those things without sounding like a woke intellectual that is trying to do their. How do you convince people in pragmatic terms that DEI isn't about anti-merit? It's about investing, showing people of Appalachia, like, you're a community that's been left behind. Investing in you is kind of like DEI. It's bringing in communities that have been historically left out of these kinds of things.
Well, I think the first thing you do is explain your why, which I was able to do. Diversity is always a strength. It makes us better. But then the next day, you're opening that next factory. You're opening the new road that's going to save people 20 minutes each way. Yes, those pieces of legislation may fly through, but they will never, even as politicized as they are, be as important to the American people as that good job or being able to afford their kids' prescription. And it's just not losing sight of that you stand up for your principles, but you recognize that you've got to spend the majority of your time on things. The greatest part about that focus is it helps everybody. A good job helps a Democrat, a Republican, an independent. It's truly that common ground. And so when I talk about what I think our road forward is, I'm hoping it's not just Democrats. I'm hoping it's Republicans too. I don't want to leave a broken country to my kids. I don't want to see this type of division. And I think that the most important things aren't partisan, and there should be a way in the future for us to come together.
There we go. So when he's questioned about this woke business, how you're going to respond to people that critique you about that, then his political instincts are kicking in, and he's trying to back off a bit. And he goes, well, you know what? What's more important are economic issues. What's more important is Democrats, Republicans working together to build roads and et cetera. Basically going back to the Bill Clinton model of I need to be a moderate Democrat, but like I said earlier in the first segment, the Trump agenda has already co-opted that, and so you can't out-Trump Trump now on those issues. And so if he wants to go that way, I don't think he's going to have a lot of traction there. And so back to the woke business that he still espouses, and he uses his faith to back it up. what's he saying? He's saying, well, diversity is our strength, and people have seen that that's not true, right? If you looked at the last campaign, remember the meme with they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, up in Springfield, Ohio. Let's ask the people in Springfield, Ohio, if diversity is their strength. Let's ask that city. Is your city better off with all this diversity? You've got 10,000 Haitians dropped into your city. You're pretty diverse now, but are you a stronger community? Do people trust one another now? Do they relate to one another? Are people just leaving? Like they're leaving Louisville. Louisville's getting so diverse, it's getting to the point where you don't even recognize some of your neighborhoods. I was driving up through Bardstown Road between Butyl and the Watterson, right in that area, and there are more Arabic language businesses and restaurants along that stretch than I saw English restaurants. It's like, what is happening to Butyl and that part of town? Now, I'm sure there's some fine people, but at the end of the day, you get that much diversity, it causes some issues. People don't feel like they're in a community now that they can relate to. People don't speak the same language. They have different worldviews. And let's not even get into the whole aspect of importing a lot of folks with a religion and a worldview that are counter to Western values. Is that sort of diversity your strength? Let's go to London right now. Let's go to England right now. Let's talk about the problem with Islam and how it's starting to assert its influence and in Europe as a whole. So diversity is not so that's a lie. You need a common culture. You need a common language. You need to be able to feel like you trust your neighbors, understand your neighbors, relate to them. You want to have a vested interest in their well-being. And when you have lots of subcultures and communities and ethnic groups that are really looking out for themselves, it becomes basically a tribalized society where there is no trust in it, and it's not a strength. I mean, go to the Balkans. Let's go to Rwanda. Is diversity their strength? I mean, that's just a lie. It's just a mantra. It doesn't make any sense. So it's not true. But it's based on empathy, this toxic empathy that Bashir perfectly represents, and he's using his religion as a way to basically reinforce these ideas. And there's a great book, I mentioned this in previous programs, there's a great book called Toxic Empathy by Allie Beth Stuckey. He really does a good job on breaking this down, how the left and progressives basically use empathy and they weaponize it to advance their agendas, and using things like DEI and LGBT. And as a matter of fact, I got a clip from her I want to play real quick and get my laptop working again. And she breaks it down why this sort of thing is not the best approach. So
much about how someone feels, putting yourself in someone else, thinking too much about how someone feels, putting yourself in someone else's shoes too much can actually blind you to the truth. Social justice is a great example of that. You start to empathize for the story of the criminal, the story of the murderer, and you start to think, well, they had a really tough upbringing. Maybe they shouldn't go to prison. Maybe we shouldn't be harsh on crime. Well, if you extrapolate that and you start having that kind of empathy for every criminal, then you live in an age and a society of lawlessness and anarchy that is actually creating more victims and more vulnerability. So empathy can be very harmful. It cannot be the driver of policy. Empathy can't be first because it can actually blind us to what is just and true. Thinking too much about how someone...
Pause that again. It just loops, one of those YouTube shorts that loop. But there we go. So empathy can blind you to truth. And matter of fact, there's a great quote here I want to read. Many of you are familiar with G.K. Chesterton, a great Christian author, and he wrote this 100 years ago about where the West was going. And he said, the modern world is full of the old... Now think about this with Andy Bashir. He's saying, I'm a Christian, that's why I do these things. Well, the modern world is full of the old Christian virtues gone mad. The virtues have gone mad because they've been isolated from each other and are wandering alone. I'm going to continue this quote in a second, but too much empathy is bad, and Andy Bashir represents that, and I think people are rejecting it. But we'll talk more about that after this break.
With SRN News, I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. President Trump today announcing a trade agreement with the United Kingdom. Writing on social media, the president called the deal with Britain a full and comprehensive one that will cement the relationship between the U.S. and the United Kingdom for many years to come. It's the first trade agreement achieved since President Trump rolled out his worldwide tariffs at the start of April. The president also confirming talks will be held this week between the U.S. and China. Those meetings set to take place in Switzerland. And the president confirms that he is open to the possibility of exemptions for goods that help parents with their young children, things like car seats, cribs, strollers, and other child care and baby products. The Pakistani military says India fired attack drones into its country, wounding 4 soldiers. India, meanwhile, accusing its neighbor of attempting its own attack. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 250 points. This is SRN News.
Just hearing the word IRS can make people break out in a cold sweat. No one wants to deal with the IRS, and now you don't have to. The good news is Legal Tax Defense has been successfully negotiating with the IRS for more than 15 years. It doesn't matter how much you owe, whether it's $5,000 or $5 million. You deserve the best in the business on your side, and that is Legal Tax Defense. Even if you're working with someone else and just want a second opinion, there is no cost or obligation to call. They can prevent levies, liens, wage garnishments, even file back tax returns. And the best news about Legal Tax Defense is they won't take your case unless they know they will reduce or eliminate your tax debt. Call Legal Tax Defense right now for a free, no-risk consultation. 800-292-7875. 800-292-7875. You have nothing to lose but everything to gain. 800-292-7875.
The Big X Sports Radio golf cards are back. The 2025 Big X Sports Radio golf card is by far the best deal in the game. With a Big X Sports Radio golf card, you can play Park Mammoth, Old Capitol, Elk Run Valley View, Wooded View, and Christmas Lake in Santa Claus, Indiana, for less than $25 a round. Supplies are limited, so get your golf card today at BigXSportsRadio.com or call 812-725-1457.
What can a ceramic coating from A&K Auto Detailing do for your vehicle? It's the best protection on the market today, up to 5 years worth, producing a showroom new gloss to your car's paint, making it easy to clean and stay clean longer, and resist harmful UV rays. Classic car owners know all about ceramic coatings. They use them to protect their investments and retain value. The high-quality ceramic coating you'll get with A&K bonds with your car's paint, making it stronger and lower maintenance, making scratches or other surface damage much harder to see. And A&K Auto Detailing provides a decontamination ceramic hand wash to maintain a previous coating, too. With the high price of vehicles, it only makes sense to protect them the best way available. With a ceramic coating from A&K on Shelbyville Road in St. Matthews, serving Louisville for over 30 years at ANKDetailing.com. Call 502-899-1799 and also ask about all the amazing professional services offered by the experienced technicians at A&K Auto Detailing.
Checking the mix of scattered showers, maybe a few thunderstorms as we into this afternoon. Overall, the severe threat is quite low. It's more downpour action than anything. Temperatures will vary as well because the clouds and spotty showers. Overall, upper 60s to lower 70s can be expected. We'll end the rain tonight, north to south, with a clear skyline for sunshine on Friday. From the Way Storm Tracking Team, I'm Brian Good.
This forecast, a service of Dalbo Insurance for home, renters, auto, and life insurance. Call 502-265-0128 or visit thaterieguy.com.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky Voice Radio, and I'm your host, one of your hosts today. I'm the only host today, Tom Fallbush. I'm the Thursday host. Thanks for joining us. If you're listening, of course, we're live on WGTK 970. We're also doing this on television for the first time this week, and you can watch this program later in the afternoon on WBNA. So we're talking about Andy Beshear. He's running for president, and just what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, how can we position Andy and frame him as an opponent to conservative values, because he is, and what are some of his things that he espouses, and just kind of let's just talk about it. So, for example, we had an interview with John Stewart earlier. He was talking about how his faith drives a lot of his progressive ideals, and we're just unpacking how progressives can justify that, and what drives them, and it's really this sense of empathy, this and I want to call it toxic empathy. It's like you have this, you try to identify too much with the victim in certain, cases and causes, and how that is divorced from truth. And that's the problem with progressivism. It's divorced from truth. It tries to use empathy, Christian empathy very often, and divorces it from truth. And we were talking about it. I had a quote from G.K. Chesterton, of all folks. If you don't know who Chesterton is, he's one of the greatest Christian writers in the past 100 years. And literally 100 years ago, he nailed this. He nailed wokeness. And I'm going to read this quote. He says, "The modern world is full of the old Christian virtues gone mad." Okay, and I'll pause there. Now, what does Andy say? He's, I'm a Christian, and my faith tells me to be an LGBT advocate or promote radical immigration policies or radical abortion policies. My faith drives me to do this. Well, what is Chesterton saying? He's saying, well, the modern world is full of these old Christian virtues gone mad. Virtue of empathy it's a virtue on some level. The virtues have gone mad because they've been isolated from each other and are wandering alone. Thus, some scientists care for truth, and their truth is pitiless. And then some humanitarians or some progressives only care for pity. And their pity, I'm sorry to say, is often untruthful. And then he goes on to say the vice of the West it's a vice of being too good. It's always thinking of the good and never thinking of the true. And so that explains Andy Beshear right now. That explains every progressive that's using this moral case for their agenda. For example, let's talk about the issues that are important. How they do this, like abortion. They always focus in on the women's situation, the woman's plight. But what about the legal issues and the moral issues regarding the unborn child? I mean, there's truth there. That's a life. But the empathy for the woman blinds you from the fact that that's a child, and you end up wanting to abort the child. You go to issues like gender, transgender issues. They just push empathy towards the transgender individual, ignoring the biological realities of there are differences between men and women. They're different, but yet you're so empathetic to the person that wants to be this other gender, this other sex. You just you ignore all the implications of what that means to society and even to that person. And so let's talk about sexuality, gay marriage, for example. Love is love, and that just oversimplifies the problem, though, because there's broader implications when you start changing marriage and destroying marriage, because that's what gay marriage did. It just destroyed it. If it's not a man and a woman, then it's nothing. You can marry, it's just so. Those are complex moral questions that, truth has to be applied to this, not just empathy. Immigration, no human is illegal. No, I just sympathize with the immigrant. I just, it doesn't matter. Come on, you're just a harsh racist if you're against immigration. Well, what about the legal issues? What about just, hey, we have laws. We also have economics we have to worry about. What about the well-being of Americans? Those are complex issues, but they use empathy to weaponize that. So you're just a racist. You just hate these people. It's just emotional manipulation, and Andy is excellent at this and what's interesting about it, he's not even doing it in a very cynical way. I think Andy really believes that he's being morally good here. I think he has some sort of faith there. I think he's had some sort of faith experience. You can kind of sense that from the way he talks about these issues. And he's trying to wrestle with the fact, well, I'm a progressive, but also maybe I have a faith and I'm kind of sensitive to that. So how do I wrestle? Well, I can use empathy, Christian empathy, to address these issues, and I can just double down on that, and I'm a good person. I can feel virtuous, and that's what the whole social justice movement does. It makes you feel virtuous by taking on these causes, and you really don't need to have a real sincere faith in Christianity, because you just need it because it just makes you feel good that you're being a good person. I'm a better person than you because I'm more empathetic to this person and this situation, and. So it's just very toxic, and we just need to call it out for what it is, and so Matter of fact, there's a clip here of Andy talking about abortion. He's getting a lot of flack today because he actually attacked J.D. Vance, and basically saying that Vance was. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick here. Here we go. Guys, I'm going to pull this video up, and here we go.
You start to empathize for the story of the criminal, the story of the murder, and you start to think, well, they had a really tough upbringing. Maybe they shouldn't go to prison. Maybe we shouldn't be harsh on crime. Well, if you extrapolate that and you start having that kind of empathy for every criminal, then you live in an age.
So you can actually hear this properly. Let me start this over. There we go. See, text. I have no crew here, just myself. I'm just a one-man band, so I just gotta do all that. No, I'm kidding. I've got guys in the back that are yelling at me.
What some people have had to go through because of these laws. J.D. Vance calls pregnancy resulting from rape inconvenient. Like, inconvenience is traffic. It is. Make him go through this.
There you go. So a lot of the critique he's taken on that. Actually, I'm going to play it again. If you notice, right at the end, he's saying, "Well, let's make J.D. Vance go through rape. Let's have. What if J.D. Vance was raped? He should be raped, and that's what the critique is today against Andy. And I don't think he was actually saying that directly, but he implied that. So let me play this clip one more time. It's about abortion.
Think about what some people have had to go through because of these laws. J.D. Vance calls pregnancy resulting from rape inconvenient. Like, inconvenience is traffic. It is. Make him go through this.
Yeah, there we go. So he's over-empathizing the plight of the woman, of the mother, and ignoring the fact that the truth that that's a child that abortion is impacting. It's a real human being. So this is classic progressive emotional manipulation, and so he is the king of this, and he's going to be really good at that. And so when he gets to the national scene, he's going to take his really deep-felt religious convictions about these empathetic stances on progressive issues, and he's going to be a great advocate for that. And so we're going to have to push back on that. And we know in Kentucky, we know that. What did he win this last governor's race on? Abortion. He used that video from that girl in Eastern Kentucky that says, I was raped by my stepdad or whatever, and I couldn't get an abortion, and emotionally manipulated, specifically women voters, to get them to back Andy. He's very powerful with women voters, because women, and I'm not going to try to trash women here, because people have accused me of that before, because I talk a lot about the dynamic of men and women in today's electorate, because women have all gone woke, and they're all very into this woke business, and they're voting leftist more than any other demographic, And so why is that? Because the left knows how to manipulate their good-natured instincts to be empathetic. And women are generally more empathetic, and they're just wired that way, and they need to be. God created them that way because they need to be mothers. They need to be very sensitive to children and the plight of folks that are vulnerable, because they just are. It helps them raise children, and so. But that maternal instinct that the left manipulates is very, very powerful, and it causes a lot of them to buy into these causes, especially LGBT stuff. I don't know how many young women I've talked to, not young and old women, that just look at the plight of the same person with same-sex attractions, and that's just all they can focus on is their plight and how sympathetic we need to be to them, and whatever their agenda is that they'll get behind, because that's all they can see. But the truth of how that impacts the rest of society, and also that person long term, is just left behind. So we have a powerful opponent here in Andy, and because he really believes it. He's someone that is a progressive, that really buys into the progressive cause, not because of a cynical play that I just need to line up with these power brokers that are pushing my party. He's bought into it emotionally and spiritually. And so we need to be ready to push back on that and say, listen, your faith is hollow, because you're only looking at half of the issue. The other half is truth. You can't just be overly empathetic and not have truth involved with us. And so I think we need to just frame Andy that way. We all know that. We lived through it in the state. The country's about to learn that real soon because he's going to be one of the front runners for the Democratic ticket this next time around. So, but we'll be right back. Talk more about Andy Beshear.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice Radio. I'm your host today, Tom Falbush. We're talking about Andy Beshear and the fact that he is now positioning himself to be a candidate for president in this next term, next to 2028 cycle. And so, and a lot of Democrats and a lot of people on the left and progressives are looking at him as well. He could be the person that can put us back on the map, because let's face it, the Democratic Party has pretty much destroyed themselves in the past decade. They bought into this radical progressive movement of wokeism, and have just alienated themselves from their base, and well, not their base, I guess the mainstream. They still have a hardcore base, but maybe they could do something like what Bill Clinton did back in the 90s, where he tacked to the middle, become more of a mainstream candidate. And so they're looking towards the Democratic Party is looking for a Southern, Midwestern candidate like Bill Clinton that could restore their fortunes. And so they're looking at none other than our own governor, Andy Beshear, to do that, and he might represent that. But I'm trying to explore some of the differences here. So some of the key differences are that Beshear has really doubled down on the progressive social agendas, and he's going to have a hard time shaking that, because he really, he was governor during a time where we were in peak woke over the past 4 or 5 years, and so he had to buy into that, and he thought that was a virtuous thing, and that's gonna haunt him unless he just does a complete 180. And just starts rejecting all this stuff like the rest of the country has. I don't think he's going to go very far. And plus, his the economic, side of say the Clinton agenda has been really co-opted by Trump. Trumpism is now much more of a moderate force when it comes to that. It's not so big business. It's not so free trade now. It's more pro-American workers. So even the strengths the Democrats had in the 90s. That they were claiming they were for the worker, for the middle class. They're not that anymore. Trumpism represents that better. So I still think you've got a pretty difficult uphill battle for Beshear, and we need to make it difficult and make it an uphill battle for him, because if he wants to keep pushing this agenda, he needs to be defeated. And one of those topics is. One of the areas you can be toxically empathetic is immigration, right? No human is illegal, open borders and all this garbage, and just open up our borders and let them in. And your diversity is our strength. And I was watching just a very interesting debate that Charlie Kirk had on the campus. I think it was at Oklahoma University, where he was talking to a student about this issue. And I wanted to play this clip because I think it really just describes the how to push back against the toxic empathy of on the immigration issue and all this diversity is our strength garbage. So let's go to Charlie here and let him respond.
The final question is,
sure.
Do you have any concern that there are too many people coming into this country and we're a nation of strangers, not a nation of neighbors?
If the people who are coming are creating America, making it more growing, like the economy is growing, then what harm is that doing? Especially if the people who are coming
are not... Because we're more than an economy, though, aren't we? We're a culture, we're a language,
yeah,
we're
of course.
People.
Okay, so let's talk about that front. When they come here, they don't have any kind of... They're not committing as more crimes than the people who are already here.
Again,
that is a statistic
we've already
done.
dispelled that, but
that is not. You can't dispel a statistic.
Let's take California.
You can't.
Do you think there's anything wrong that a majority of young people in California speak Spanish, not English?
Wait, sorry. Can you say that?
Do you think there's anything wrong or troubling to the fact that a majority of people under the age of 30 here in this state speak Spanish, not English? Is there a problem with that?
Well, yeah. Everyone should be able to have a ability to communicate with the rest of the crowd. So I don't know what the big issue of that.
See, I think it's a huge problem when we have a nation where you can't communicate with your fellow neighbor.
Okay, simple solution. Teach them how to speak English. What is your point?
Yeah, and our schools don't do that, actually. And also, have a better solution.
Yeah.
Don't import a bunch of people that don't speak English.
You mean importing people who actually grow the economy?
Well, but
who
again,
don't...
I reject your premise.
That's not a premise. That's a study that's been done.
Do you know what a premise is? I don't actually care as much about economic growth, because we're one nation under GDP. We're not one nation under GDP. We're a nation under God. Yeah. And when we lose social cohesion, and you import a bunch of people that don't share our values, that don't necessarily always assimilate, that's a major and serious problem. And we are a people first and foremost with a creed, and that creed is falling apart. Mass migration has not helped that creed. Yes, they might buy more trinkets. They might help depress wages. Mass migration, of course, can help
all good things, all great things for America that needs.
Well, they help major corporations, but you know what they also do? They keep down the wages of working people. If you are a plumber, yes, of course. If you think about it, if you're a plumber, electrician, or a welder, and you have to compete against someone from Nicaragua who's willing to do it for $5 less an hour, that depresses the wages of the American citizen.
Right. Yeah. So there's been studies that done that also like counteract that. Illegal immigrants.
Well, let's use our reason.
Let's
use our
look
reason.
Our studies.
Let's use our
how about
reason.
Statistics?
How about our reason? So we've had mass migration for 20 years. Have wages gone up?
I don't know.
No, they haven't actually.
Okay.
So forget your studies. For 10 years we've had 30 million people come into America. Wages have gone down dramatically.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason why.
Okay.
Maybe there's a reason why. And so if Bashir thinks he's going to capture the magic of Bill Clinton, well, Bill Clinton didn't espouse open borders and illegal immigration, and he actually helped the interest of the working class, and so Andy Bashir's toxic empathy on the illegal immigration issue undermines his moderate Democrat, wishes that he wants to recreate himself as Bill Clinton 2.0, and so. And you can see that in this city, in this area. I mean, if you live in Louisville, I mean, it's really an odd place now. It's an odd place in the sense it's not odd. It's a classic American big city. They're all going through this now. You're seeing basically the enclaves of ethnic enclaves develop in all these major cities and not like America's never had this before. You go to New York in the 19th century, you had the different boroughs that represented different ethnic groups, but over time, those folks assimilated. After second or third generation, they assimilated, and plus we had a much stronger. We had more confidence in who America was back then. We insisted that people assimilate and learn the language and become part of our system. We don't do that anymore. We have no confidence in who America is, so we don't ask them to be Americans and actually back then that was mostly legal immigration, and we turned the tap off when we thought we had too much. Back at the end of the 20s, we shut that off. It was like 50 years we had very little immigration. We just turned on the tap again back in the 60s, and so basically just legal immigration has been such at a high pace over the past 50 years. That's already changed the complexity of the country in many ways and undermined wages. Then you add to that illegal immigration, and which was impacted that even further. And so I don't think you're going to find that magic, that moderate Democrat magic, if you're going to be a toxic, empathy, progressive, like Andy Bashir. And a good example. I was talking to a local restaurant owner here in Louisville, and I enjoy Indian food. I guess the one upside of a lot of diversity, if there is an upside, is there's a lot of ethnic restaurants, and you get a lot of taste. That's great. If you've got an interest in great food, great. Diversity is good on that front. But I think you can still have that without having huge populations of folks that undermine the economy and create too many all these social problems. But anyway, I was talking to this restaurant owner, and so he said, I don't know why, and he's from India. He goes, I don't know why you Americans allow this. I mean, I know and he started naming all these different ethnic groups that he's connected with, and he goes, Tom, they're all here, they're all scamming you. They just run these scams. They come here and they get on welfare, they get on all these government assistance programs, and then they bring in their relatives and under all these little, quasi, immigration plans that are just, it's kind of sketchy, and they basically said you're suckers. You're Americans, or you're just being taken advantage of. And why are you letting this happen? And this is an immigrant. And this is an immigrant that local business owner. He's like, why are you doing this? And it just really struck me. It's like, this is a guy that knows. He's part of that community, and he's kind of going, gosh, this country is so good. It's been good to me, but all these immigrants are basically coming in just taking advantage. And I'm not knocking every person that immigrates to this country. I'm sure there's some decent people. I'm sure most of them are decent. They just want to come here for their own betterment of life, and don't fault them there. But we have laws, and we have our own interest. Americans have our own interest, and if we have an interest